So time is 6:12, perfect. 2 minutes late, Hawaiian time. So
we have to modify the screen because basically it wasn't screened properly. Not a translate, way better. So there's some modifications that have to be done when we teach classes.
So thank you guys for coming out this month to the Natural Farming Meeting. So word out ahead of time. Just kind of sent it out yesterday at the end. I was like, it's the 14th already?
Yeah.
And kind of been going through my my life a little bit, and this past couple months I've been working with a couple people on my farm, trying to train them about natural farming. Through that process, I've been working on fine-tuning my curriculum and working with them. But presently, I'm a little irritated that, I'm here alone. I'm trying to get a little bit more support on that, and have someone else that can help me to get out the email to people and do this, because it's a lot for me to juggle right now, and I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed a little bit right now. And so I appreciate you guys all showing up and really being the support and being here, because this organization and this thing that we're on to is it, and it's only gaining more and more momentum. But really, we're really looking to step up, we're there, we're doing it, but I feel I'm there doing it too, but I'm feeling a little overwhelmed right now is what I'm trying to say, guys. So tonight I really, we have some good food to share. That drink there I brought, it's fermented plant juice and water, because I was watering green grass fertilizer out on my land all day, and I dealt with a ton of drama this morning, and that super unsettled me, and then I was just trying to get focused into my work and just work through it, and all of a sudden I just looked at the clock and I'm like, oh, it's 4 o'clock already, I gotta be in town, and so I just whipped together that. So I'm sorry I'm not even holding it down, because I'm really trying to big up this event to be a potluck feast. So more coming to hear what I gotta say, we're coming together and just bonding with each other, and we got good grinds here, so we can just eat food and really get down, because I find it so valuable when I come here that so many people tell me all these little tidbits that then bring such richness together. And so utilizing this time in this space to be everybody shares, and then we have some presentations sometimes, but I'd really like to facilitate that sharing thing. And who here tonight is this is your first time here? Okay, so are you guys looking to this meeting here? We do educational stuff sometimes, but it's not necessarily the best place to learn natural farming itself. But it is a good thing to if you're learning, you can talk to people and say hey, I've been trying this and this works, and then other people can help you really refine your practice here, because there is a really big precision to natural farming, and that's what we're really trying to get unified right now, so that when someone makes a recipe of fermented plant juice or growth syrup or whatever you're going to call it, that thing is, you don't have to, if you're using it, you don't have to question that the ingredient wasn't made right, because we make our own ingredients and we use them. And so if your usage, if you don't make your ingredients right and you're using it all the time, you're if you're not using the right thing. So getting our ingredients and learning how from natural farming. In terms of education series that we're running right now, there's a course that's going to be offered February 18th to 22nd. That's going to go basically through everything, I believe. As Chris was telling me that, I was like, "Gonna do it all." And he is. So be ready to be super saturated with knowledge if you do attend that. But they're going to do everything, and it's going to be at the University of Nations, which is in Kona, right in Kailua Kona. And it's going to, I think, what's the cost?
Right now it's not firm yet.
Okay.
But it's not that expensive.
Yeah, and we're gonna run this course as like really inexpensive, basically to cover the costs. To again, kind of, this is like our big for the year, at least from the co-ops, the natural farming co-ops perspective, as the big like education event, and also to kind of dry run and test them on the education and really trying to get this out. So again, that's also why it's a less cost, is because they're getting that out there. And so if you can attend that, I know it's in Kona, but it's going to be well worth it. I think out of that material there'll be a DVD and also a book, because the University of Nations wants to film that so that they can use it around the world, because like they're trying to spread this out globally. So I believe they're just going to do the filming like for free because they want to use the stuff. And so I think that'll also be released to us for cost of what it costs to make it type thing.
Is that in South Kona or?
No, it's University of Nations is like right in Kailua Kona, like. Yeah, it's on a lead, right? It's like you wouldn't think it. There's this huge thing like right in the middle of Kona. I went there and I was like, whoa! I didn't even know this was here. Yeah.
It's a trip.
So cool.
Are they connected to the UN?
I don't know.
University of Nation is a missionary school.
Oh,
Yeah.
And they've also been doing natural farming for
I see.
at least 5 years, right? And they took basically the Kona lava rock, and now they have really beautiful, amazing soil.
So they're teaching it, the University of...
No, the
Who
co-op.
is
The co-op will
teaching
be Kim Chang here will be an instructor, Chris
Okay.
Trump, and Dr. Park.
The park.
Oh yes.
Yeah, great.
And so that'll be coming up. And there's also classes in Kalapana right now.
Right.
Do you want to fill that in?
Basically, that was a small little proposal we got through the county, and it was to try and help people. Actually, it was to help a group of a family of 6 people that were all related, and to try and educate them on farming and how this could alleviate some of the, unemployment and problems they have down there. So after going through the system, what we saw was they had a lot of things going for them, with the exception of how they can generate their own food and how to make a little bit of money doing it. So this thing was to get these 6 families established. So we've built piggeries out there with them. We've built chicken houses out there. We started to plant kalo with them. There's some other crops they're growing, such as coffee, that they've started, and they started to do the system. Drake is the so-called consultant to the project. He goes out there and he does most of the hard work, and they've hired a couple of teachers to go out there, teach classes more on how to use the inputs rather than how to make them. So these guys actually know what they're doing out there when they go out and spray the plants, And it's been fairly successful in that. When we had the educational meeting for the community, we started off with Drake. Drake came in and he gave the history of natural farming. It was unreal. We went from the early stages when only had 3 or 4 of us. Yeah, we're gonna do this, to where we at now. And all the hoops we had to jump through, from going to Korea and learning it from the master Cho and trying to replicate it on the ground. That was the first workshop. The second workshop had to deal with one of Drake's people again. So what we did is we brought in the moon calendar to tie in the Hawaiian culture out in Kalapana with natural farming, and how natural farming can be implemented with the Hawaiian culture using the moon. Okay. That lady, every time she speaks, man, she is something else. She motivates everybody to go out and take off your clothes and stop planting follow it. But it's pretty awesome what she does, and she ties it into natural farming. Then the next one, we brought in a kalo expert here. We brought in Uncle Henry Leong, and what he did was he brought in all different varieties of taro, and we planted namala at the school so the kids would take care and learn about natural farming at the school. He's getting on in age, and what I found out, and I didn't think about it, but I know I put him through some stress to do this workshop, because after a while he started repeating himself, and that's when I knew that, oh, this is too much for this old man. Yeah. But the old man, the mind is still sharp when it comes to taro. He taught us how to prepare the ulis the Hawaiian way, and plant certain type of taro, and looking at the taro and how to identify it. Yeah. And then Kamehameha schools came in, and they were also on the agenda. And Kaylee, who is part of this board here, he brought some uala that they grew up at Kamehameha schools using natural farming. The average size of the sweet potato was 5 pounds. It was like this everywhere. So we passed that off to everybody. Okay. We got one coming up on the 22nd of this month, and basically it's how to look at added value products. And the guy will talk about what is the permanence of Kalapana and the history of it. Why he's going to talk about that. He says, bring in the Hawaiian culture, go to the mele, go to the hula, and tell them, this is what you guys are famous for. Why aren't you guys planting this? And do the added value on how to make money at this thing. And then right after him, we got a guy coming in. He's got a new company that loans money to new farmers. So he's going to talk about how you go around making a loan. The last one is in February. That's the chicken workshop, which we're doing in Honolulu right now. So we'll do the same workshop for Kuo Kalam. We'll leave them with a chicken house up there so that the kids can continue learning about natural farming, learning about livestock. And then we go back to Drake, start all over again, because he is the guest speaker at the Ulu conference at the school. So basically, this is what has happened. There's classes going on how to spray. We've taken some of the local talent out there to teach the classes, so there's trust among the people in the class. So it's kind of neat, and hopefully within a year we will see some impact out there. Everybody's following it, especially in the county. The county is the one that funded the project, and hopefully we can get these 6 families farming on their own and growing their own food there in the future. So that's what's happening in Kalapana.
Does anyone else know of any other natural farming education things going on right now? No.
Here we go.
I knew you had something.
This Saturday, Uncle Henry, who did the talk on how to grow kala before, for the natural farming group, he'll be opening up his garden up by the golf course. It's like down by KPA, Hawai'i. And it's on Saturday from at 1 o'clock. And if you want directions, you could just talk to me and I'll write your email down and I can email it to you. But yeah, Saturday, 1 o'clock, this coming Saturday. The main thing is try to wash your boots off or whatever, just try to keep the pest and disease out of his. It's a repository. It's got all types of Hawaiian, taro, and other varieties too.
Cool, good. Yes.
I have had this IMO has been sold to the Ace Hardware and Farm Supply. I'm now too busy with the University of Nations. I work as a volunteer physician there and different projects. So I'm turning over to my nephew-in-law, Joseph, who has been working on this. So Hawai'i Natural Farm LLC, the company, is going to be turning over to his. So he'll make the IMO4. But my machine is donated to the University of Nations. But I hope Joseph will come in maybe one day out of the week or something, and he can just produce the same machine. And right now the machine is not setting up there.
You're moving it to Kona? Did you
It's
move the
Kona.
machine to Kona?
Yeah, it's in the corner now. By the way, I was asked to give a seminar next month in Maui.
Okay.
Yeah, Maui. It's 7 or 8. It's 2 days.
In February.
Yeah.
Where in Maui?
I think this is some culture center or some.
Can I get that information, because I know some people who've been waiting for it to come to Maui.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Alika Atai, he's the one, he's one arranging, so he hasn't tell me the exactly where location, but he has in mind people, so I'd probably do that 2 days seminar. Yeah. And there's one extra, this Korean people in Honolulu, the church group, they wanted me to send us. So I'm going there. It's January 21st and 22nd. But that's going to be in Korean, so.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Cool.
By the way, is the county okay, is the mayor is thinking of going to Korea? I don't know. Last year he said the letter that we're going to go. He said last year, this year March sometime.
I don't know. I can find out.
Yeah. If he goes, then I don't know. We might arrange some group of people maybe visiting to Metro Farming in the county. We had a sister city relationship with one of the county which they have a big machine there. So we might learn something.
Okay. So I just want to drop a little tidbit of natural farming knowledge on you, because we all like that, right? So I've been talking with Chris Trump, and he's been doing big industrial batches of IMO, which is indigenous microorganism, and it follows this 4-stage process of bulking it up. And I've also recently been thinking of sort of renaming from IMO, although we're already familiar with IMO, but when I'm teaching it, what I'm saying and the vocabulary I'm using is calling it compost concentrate. Mm-hmm. And so the research that we've been doing with Chris Trump and with the microscope and things has been really to fine-tune this IMO process. And so what we've distilled down is basically in stage 1, you're putting out a simple starch, such as cooked rice, to collect every microbe in your area. And that's what makes it indigenous, because you're grabbing it right from where you're at. And whatever's there, the biggest or the best, most prolific, strongest guys are going to occupy that starch first. So if you leave it out for a couple days, when it first is populated out, you're collecting that. You're collecting the best, all IMOs. So you're getting fungus, bacteria, all kinds of things, all these little microorganisms in there. In stage 2, you're mixing it with brown sugar. What happens when you mix it with brown sugar is the bacteria that are in there, the best ones, when there's so much abundant food, the best ones really take off really fast. And they proliferate throughout your entire thing. And within 3 days, that now rice mixed with sugar, kind of goopy stuff, is really, 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 really good bacteria that has gone through and filled out this entire area, and once it's reached a saturation point, it kind of goes to sleep because it gets so thirsty because there's so much sugar. So it grows to a certain point, but then hibernates. So you've captured and essentially isolated your best bacteria in stage 2. In stage 3, this is where we've been making the most refinements to the process to push the system to become more fungal. Because in stage 3, you're growing fungus. And what happens is once you've grown the best bacteria in stage 1, now those best bacteria are able to support really good fungus. So you needed to get the bacteria in there first in stage 2. Then when you're going up to stage 3, typically you're mixing that sugar and rice soup-y stuff you got with mill run, which is a more complex carbohydrate. It's actually the whole, and it contains proteins and all kinds of other things in there, proteins, fats, and it also holds moisture really well. And if you look up compost tea recipes on the internet, they'll tell you if you want to grow fungus, you add oatmeal or wheat bran, which is exactly what mill run is. So you're growing it in this thing that fungus really loves. The refinements we've been making to that is Chris Trump has been adding wood chips into the thing at about the rate of 10%. So 10% of the matter that would have been this mill run stuff, he's adding in wood chips. Also at that stage, when he's mixing the water in, he's adding humic acid. And it's not the humic acid you buy at the store, because that stuff is not what you want. The best way to make humic acid is to take a compost pile and to just passively run water through that. So that means you're not trying to spray it off and spray it. You put it in a I have holes in the bottom of my bucket, and I just put my compost in and I fill it with water until it drains out. And then I take that water and I pour it back through about 3 times until the water that comes out is the color of 70% coca chocolate, like cacao chocolate. Those bars of chocolate, 70%. If it's that color, primarily you got a lot of humic acid and fulvic acids and these different compounds that are extremely efficient at waking up fungus and stimulating fungal growth. So in this 3rd stage where we're trying to grow fungus, we're including wood chips, which has lignin and things that push the environment to be more fungal, and then lots of humic acid, which wakes them up. Because they're essentially, spored out, and they're like, I could grow now or later, but when you put the humic acid in there, they're like, oh man, there's humic acid out there, I'm going to get some. And they breed really...
Energize.
They breed much quicker and better fungus when you have that in. So, and I talked with him yesterday, and he told me this story about how he was doing like 100-foot row of IMO, and he left his worker to do it because he had to do something else, and he came back and the pile, he didn't add enough wood chips into this pile. He didn't have the right wood chips, so he didn't add wood chips at all, and he left it to his worker to do it. He got back in a couple days, and the temperature was just skyrocketing in the middle of his pile. The temperatures were you're supposed to keep IMO at about 120 degrees. If it hits 130, you should flip it. But his bottom of his pile was hitting 140, 150. And he's like, what's the deal with this? And both edges were dry and the middle was dry. So he ended up just taking his tractor and pushing the pile from where it was. And what had happened was the worker had just, instead of like going and misting the entire thing, he just walked back and forth in the center and put all the water right in the center. And so this pile, because it didn't have the wood chips for the microbes to move that moisture from this soup into like wood chips or into some other thing, it was essentially just sitting in the soil in the middle. So every time he turned the pile, it was still this super wet soup underneath. And that pile failed, like, it was not correct. So there is a precision to doing this, and if you're too wet or you're not turning your pile properly, when he put it back under the microscope, he's going to see that it didn't work. And primarily what we're looking for under the microscope when we're looking at the IMO right now is that, like I was saying, we're at this 3 stage and we're growing fungus. What happens is you have a pile, and the outside of the pile stays cooler because it's open to the air, and the inside of the pile heats up more. And the process of, once it heats up to a certain temperature, the fungus in the inside, it doesn't die, but it spores. And so it turns into like an egg, and it's this hard spores that you could send them into outer space and they're going to live. Like, they're almost impossible to kill these spores once it spores out. The trick is then to wake it back up, but humic acid is your friend there. So it spores out in the center of the pile, and then when you're turning this pile, now you're taking this cool stuff that was still growing, still active, and turning it in with these spores that it spored out, and then now these spores get to the outside. Some of them rehatch, and or they just stay spores, and that inside of the pile heats up more, and it'll spore out again. And it's when it's sporing out these many times, that's why I'm calling it compost concentrate. Because I don't just have fungus, I have fungus spores in there. So it's like having a bunch of eggs versus, like how many eggs can you fit in your car versus how many chickens can you fit in your car. So if I have the eggs, it's a really concentrated form of it. And so by stimulating the fungus to grow fast and having that extra wood chips and that extra humic acid in there, it really helps them to go through this process and then respore out. And in the 7 days you're in that stage of turning the pile, you're gonna hugely concentrate fungal spores in here. And this is one of the most vital things to restoring soil, is having really good fungus, because the fungus is what goes in and builds structure in your soil. It's going to go and build the water lines and the electrical lines in your soil. They really help out that way. So having lots and lots of spores, that's why the IMO, you only need 220 pounds per acre or per quarter acre, whatever it is. Forget. Cool. 220 per acre. Okay, so 320 per quarter acre versus when you're going to go compost or organic matter, you need much more to that. And it's because, so it would be 30 tons versus 320 pounds. So it's, 30 times more concentrated. I don't know. Way more concentrated, really what it comes down to.
Is that the only solution you're putting in your IMO 3, or are you still putting the items in the recipe?
Yeah, no, all the other items are included. This is what I'm supplementing with this as well. Yeah, and so my water that I start with, like you would just use like clean water to start with, right? Mm-hmm. My water I'm starting with is a bucket that I've already run through my compost to get that humic acid in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so essentially what happens in that stage, you got the good bacteria, so the fungus grew well, you added the nice fungal food, you got them to spore really heavy into there. Then in your 4 stage, when you're adding in the dirt, this is where you're adding kind of the higher tier that makes the whole system work. That you add in nematodes and protozoa into your mix there. They're in the soil. Also, those minerals really help them to exceed in that environment. If you just put nematodes into the mill run, they wouldn't be happy. But when you add that soil and those minerals, they really are happy with that. And essentially they spore out too, and you get concentrated nematodes. And most people think, oh, nematodes, they're bad, right? 4 out of 5 multicellular animals are nematodes. So let that sink in. Maybe I'll repeat it. 4 out of 5 multicellular animals are nematodes. So for every multicellular animal you see, there's 4 nematodes. So they're everywhere. I've been told if you went to outer space and you looked at the Earth and the dirt was gone, you could still see the outline of the continents from the nematodes. Like that's how prevalent they are, and they're everywhere. And so nematodes are super important. And the role that the nematodes are going to play in here is that your bacteria and your fungus go out and they build this amazing structure. But the plant goes into that structure and it's like, cool, this is a great place, but where's the food? And it's the nematodes that go in that start to eat some of the bacteria and fungus. And they just go through and they munch. And when they start to eat it, the bacteria and fungus are richer, like just from the nitrogen point of view, they're richer in nitrogen. And so a nematode's going to eat a bacteria that contained 100 parts nitrogen, and it's going to poop out 90 of those parts. So it only digested like 10% of what it ate. So its excrement is very rich. And it's also in the form that the plant wants. That if you get it in other forms throughout the soil, the plants, there's different nitrates and nitrates and all these different things. But the waste from these nematodes and from these protozoa are exactly what's going to feed the plant. And so this is where I see people now where they go out, they put IMO out, they get good results at first because essentially it's building the soil structure, but then the results kind of taper off to a bit. And I think it's getting the better nematodes and getting that cycle to get the whole thing to cycle. Because we built really good soil structure, but the key is to get it to cycle around. And that's bringing in kind of higher order life forms like nematodes, protozoas, microarthropods, I don't know, you could enumerate. Yeah, we're macroorganisms.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Liquefy IMO 30 and get IMO 4 from the garden itself, in the soil itself, rather than mixing it first before you put it in.
Yeah,
You'd save one step.
Well, yeah, but thinking you're saving a step is not. There's
Also,
no
you're able
shorter way.
Able to put these things into your field with water much easier than when you're doing it with particles of soil. You can put it in water and spray it. Is that possible?
Yeah, in my operation, what I'm doing right now is a fair amount of compost tea. I'm putting out the IMO 4 bokashi, the solid form, but I'm also taking that same stuff and putting it into my brewer. And I did a couple months ago, brought my brewer in and was talking about it, and yeah, and I'm doing a fair amount of liquid stuff. We're actually, like Chris Trump and I are doing a lot of research on that, with the microscope and seeing what we're getting and what the proliferation times are, because it depends on how long you've brewed it to what type of life you're brewing. And so that that's a big factor in there. To add, so if you did the IMO 3 as a liquid thing, I always go to the IMO 4 and then liquidize it, and it works really well. But you can also make what they call protozoan infusions. So if you wanted to get this, you're not going to get nematodes, but you can get protozoa, which function as nematodes. And the way to do that is just take your yard clippings, like that grass, and put it in water for 2 days, and just let that sludge, that water stuff, then water that out, and you're going to get tons of flagellates in there. And if you do it 3 days, you're going to get a ton of ciliates. So don't do it 3 days, because
Right.
ciliates are what bites into your plant and they produce alcohol, or they're attracted to alcohol actually, and they bite your roots and they're bad. Well, they're not bad. They're all in balance. But if they get out of balance, you quickly notice. You're like, whoa, they all serve a purpose and they're in some balance. But if you get too many of them, so you want to be careful when you're brewing things, to make sure you apply it at the right time. Because if you wait too long and things get stressed, bad things proliferate. If there's plenty of food available, typically you get good things.
So when days go longer, it will make bad smell? No?
Mixed bad.
Yeah, when you put it in the sit too long, those grass clips, you said using 2 days or something, but if we sit it longer days, then it will smell, or is there any sign?
No. I mean,
No sign?
Yeah, no. Like as your thing starts to ferment, like we all know. I mean, those of us who have done it, the fermented plant juice, that about day 3 it starts to smell a little like alcohol, and that's because it's fermented to that point that the yeasts have now created enough alcohol to make it alcoholic, and that's when the alcohol smell's coming out. That's when you're gonna get the ciliates, because they're like, who wants to party? So if you're smelling alcohol off the system, odds of ciliate activity is much higher. But that typically here takes, it could potentially happen in 2 days, but that's really, you'd have to have the right heat and pressure on it and really take care of it to do that. Just at normal temperatures and normal things, in 2 days you're going to grow flagellates. In 3 to 4 days you're going to grow what you don't want. So, if you are actively aerating your compost tea, you can go longer than 2 days. But typically, what I've been talking with Chris is about 48 hours seems to be kind of the prime for fungus to develop, but not the bad things to move in yet. Like right at 48 hours, it seems like we're at the right spot.
What elevation?
I'm at 650.
Okay, so.
And if you're aerating it, is it 24 hours enough? You're bubbling it?
So what I've been finding with my compost tea when I've been bubbling it is I think my brewer is a little bit too violent and the fungus isn't proliferating. So I still have the spores in there, but they're not brewing because fungus is fragile and it's long and dainty, and if it's not right conditions, it'll get beat up and it'll just be like, So my present method of what I'm doing is I run a vortex brewer, and so it's a little 5-gallon Waterman jug that I've turned upside down and hooked an airlift pump into, and it creates a tornado all the way through the system. So it's highly oxygenated, but pretty violent because the water's coming out and it's spinning. So what I've been doing is brewing that for 24 hours, loading all my mixes in that, brewing it for 24 hours, and then after that putting it into a trash can that nothing's in it. Like I'm just filling it and I let it sit in that trash can for 24 hours, and then I notice there's lots more film starting to grow on it, and so I'm getting biofilms, which is like fungus or bacteria and yeast starting to interact, and different fungal colonies starting to grow. And so by letting it, I figure if I'm brewing it, adding all the minerals, it's like this really rich time, but hectic, And then after that, it's kind of like this peak. They have all the nutrients. There's plenty of oxygen in the water from being brewed for 24 hours with a vortex. I don't have a Vox meter. It's like a couple $1,000s to buy one. So I don't know how much dissolved oxygen there is. But I can tell you there's a lot, because when I pour it into the other thing, it stays fresh. And so from my active brewer into a passive brewer for the next, so 24 hours in the active, 24 hours in the passive brewer, and I'm getting pretty good results. I have yet to compare those under the microscope with what Chris is getting, because he's doing it a little differently. I noticed if I just take my tea out from the vortex brewer, that I'm seeing like one thing there, and then I move a whole screen and I see one thing there, and it just looks. I expected it to be more concentrated and more life cruising around. Because if you just take IMO and put it into a bucket and leave it for 24 hours without aerating it, you're gonna see all kinds of stuff cruising all around. And so if I'm putting in a brewer and I'm oxygenating, you'd think I'd have more stuff. But if that's not the case, so that's why I'm going to the active and then stagnant system and experimenting with that. I'm not saying it's perfect or working.
Smell?
Yeah. So off my when I do that system off the stagnant system, it smells a lot like lactobacillus. That you kind of get a sweet smell to it once you know it, and I'm getting a lot of lactobacillus, which is why we went to this, I poured into the stagnant when I still drank it. I'm like, I smelled so much lacto in here, it's got to be good for you. And I drank it anyway. It's not as good. The crystal tea tastes better. The crystal tea tastes like coconut water. But the vortex and stagnant one, it's a little sour. It tastes like lactobacillus. And that's the other thing, is that the lactobacillus being in there, when I'm talking with Chris, is we also see good concentrations of lactobacillus in the teas, which lactobacillus is one of the most powerful microorganisms on Earth, and it's a common component in EM. Like EM1 has lactobacillus as a third of it. So it's proven scientifically that lactobacillus is beneficial for plants and animals. It's one of the secrets to the no smell is the lactobacillus, amongst other things. And so when we get high concentrations of that, it's such a good supporting microbe that the other microbes that aren't as easily identifiable are in good hands. They at least have something with them that's helping them out in that system. And so that's yeah.
Do they like music?
Yes. Yeah, no, it's interesting with vibes and stuff. These animals are really, like, they're tiny bits of life, and they're really sensitive to vibrations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Drums, music.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I heard rock and roll doesn't come out with the best results. But you want to play? Yeah, get some like Baroque music or. Yeah.
Sing to them.
What like a didgeridoo?
Yeah, didgeridoo. That's good. Yeah.
Cool.
Did you know with the micro? Yeah.
You can watch under the microscope while he plays.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Although when you observe things, you change them, right? So who knows? But
Thank you.
And just the other thing I've been doing, I've been really trying to improve my soil aggregate structure. I've been doing a few different things, and what I did this morning was the green grass liquid fertilizer, which is one of the recipes that's in the back of the original recipe book. I don't know where else it is, but and Dr. Park also did a presentation, a demonstration on it years ago that I think I have a video of somewhere. And I had never done this before, but I was reading through the book, and it says it builds good soil aggregate structure, which soil aggregates are basically, if your dirt's all powdery, not much is going to move through it, but if it turns into nice chunks, then airspace and water is going to flow, and your plants are going to be happy with better soil aggregate structure. And right now I'm working in a really anaerobic zone where I don't have enough IMO4 to go and cover the area that I'd like, because I'm doing a big fruit tree orchard. And so essentially I have my fruit tree and a perimeter of wood chips around it that's about 4 feet. And in that area, I took the IMO4 and put it and did the whole soil prep right in those little, that basically 6 foot zone around that I have the wood chips in. And so I did the aerobic with the IMO bokashi and did the whole soil treatment where I put the microbes out and then watered them with the food so that they could work their way into the soil. And I did that in the immediate vicinity of my plants. But I know the roots go way further than people think. The other day I was digging in my garden, like a tree was way over, like across the street, and I'm digging and I hit a root from it. I was like, man, that's like way further than you think. And so I want to encourage my plant roots to go out. So in the rest of my orchard, where I'm not going to throw the IMO because I don't have the capacity to do that right now, I've been making green grass liquid fertilizer, which this recipe is anaerobic, which means it's without oxygen. And when you play with anaerobic things, you're flirting with danger. If you're working with aerobic things like the IMO process and it's aerobic, your chance of contamination or being a bad batch is extraordinarily small. But when you're working with anaerobic things, your chance of contamination is much higher, and that you're going to propagate the wrong thing. And I was talking to Drew about it, and basically aerobic microbes, ones with oxygen, are cooperative, and they work with each other and they help each other out, and they're like, hey, you want this, you want that? Anaerobic guys without oxygen are like super selfish, and they're like trying to get as much as they can, like, no, got mine. And that's why they can get dangerous, because ones that are cooperating and sharing, hard to be dangerous. Ones that are always taking for themselves can, take the wrong thing and become dangerous. So this is an anaerobic recipe, so your mileage may vary, and be very careful implementing it. But essentially what I did was filled a 40-gallon, or I had a 60-gallon tote, filled it up with 40 gallons to make it about 2/3 full. Then I added 2 gaping handfuls of fish meal, which approximated about 6 pounds or so of ground up fish meal. You could just go get fish waste and put it in a blender and turn it on. I got powdered stuff from Oahu, same deal. Put that in there. Then I took a bunch of the tips of the grass and went around, got hono grass, green grass, yard grass, everything, weeds, whatever, chopped them pretty small, and then put them in the Vitamix and just blended them up. So I took about that much stuff and blended it into one blender. So it was like this super thick, like if you drank that, it'd be like you're chewing through it, like of stuff. And then I also took a little bit of intact material and threw it into the tank too. So I blended a whole lot of grass material and then also a little bit of intact things, because the leaves that then floated on the top, biofilm started to grow on them. And so you create this own little colony if you don't just like pulverize it all. So some floating material in there too. And then I threw in, I blended up, it called for rice bran, which is just like mill run, the hulls, but I didn't have any of that, so I just took brown rice and blended it up. And I blended up a whole bunch of brown rice. So I got, I got different things in there than just the hulls. So I got, some more starches and things that would encourage more bacteria than fungus. But I figured, blend it up, right? So added that to it, and then a handful of IMO number 4 into that. And then I sealed it with a plastic lid on the top and left it for 3 days. And sure enough, it said, you'll come back and it'll bubble and smell foul. And they were absolutely correct. It was the slight little bubbles popping up, and it smells really bad. Because your body is attuned to tell you when you're in the presence of anaerobic bacteria or anaerobic microorganisms. Your body is telling you this is anaerobic, it's probably dangerous, get away from it. So anytime you smell something that stinks, it's because there's anaerobic microbes present in large quantities, and it's probably dangerous. So your gag reflex is actually saving you. It's not that bad. You don't gag from it, but and then spread that all over this morning, basically everywhere in between my rows, and we diluted it about 200 to 1. The recipe in there called for 1,000 to 1 to 500 to 1. But I made so much of it, 40 gallons, that I was like, I'm not going to do like 40,000 gallons like that. I don't even have that much water tank capacity. So I just diluted it a little heavier, and I'm hoping it'll rain tonight or it's wet enough here, I think, that we can dilute, we can do this a little heavier. And my idea being that basically I'm working on this really anaerobic soil, that if I probe it, there's no life in it, it's pretty much dead, it's just, there's no oxygen in there, it's just dead soil. And so my theory is that around the plant I want to encourage it to be aerobic, and as much as possible be aerobic, but in this middle ground where, you know, it's between the trees, I'm going to just put the anaerobic guys there since it's already anaerobic conditions, and maybe they'll go in and, like, you know, cut a trail through and start a campfire and, you know, bury some waste there, and then it'll start that process of at least having some life there. And they're already anaerobic, so they're happy with the anaerobic soil. They're like, cool, just like home. And they'll move in, and hopefully then that will help to get my aerobic to then spread out naturally just from where I've already done the aerobic work right around the plants, and that will spread out as the soil improves. But right now where I'm, you know, yeah.
So you're saying in a dead zone, it's better to introduce anaerobic in a dead zone?
Not necessarily. Like that's not the generalization I wanted to make.
Okay.
The generalization I wanted to make is it's already anaerobic. It's already without oxygen.
Okay.
So why not use the guys that are attuned to working without oxygen versus trying to bring in these guys who need oxygen, bring in the guys who don't need it into that, and then they'll start to get it so that if the guys with oxygen can come in later.
Is there a soil amendment that might be another way to do it, like adding some material or
so
you know,
so I always, you know, like
soil?
my friend comes over and it's like, you know, I could go get a dump truck and go get the kind from the kind to kind and bring the kind over here, but then I got a dump truck full of the kind, you know, and it's like that costs a lot and it came from somewhere. Okay. And what I'm trying to do is, opposed to like bringing in a bunch of stuff and doing a bunch of amendments, I'm like, how can I work this magic dust that I've been the privilege to, you know, work with, and how can I make this magic dust really be magic dust, where I just sprinkle it out and it works, right? And they're like, how'd you do that? And I'm like, yeah. And so I'm really trying to figure out this technique, because I look at Hamakua and I see thousands of acres that need bioremediation. You know, that it's just dead soil out there, and it all needs it. And if we go and we say, well, you know, I did it at my place and I brought in 10 dump trucks of this, it's like, how do we scale? You know, we can't. So what I'm trying to do, even though I'm on a small scale, I'm still trying to, you know, most bang for my buck. Like literally this tank that I created, this 40-gallon drum, maybe $5 worth of material into it, maybe $5-6 of material into it. That then made 40,000 gallons of stuff to go out, and that covers what, like at least 25 acres, at least, for $5.
Yeah.
Granted, there's more cost in that. Like, you know, what did it cost me all day to do that? What did it cost, you know, this, that, and there's a lot more to it. But in terms of material cost and huge tracts of land for bioremediation, that's the sweet spot I'm looking for.
What about seawater? I mean, that's one thing that you mentioned before, that could affect it, right?
That's in your base.
Fermented seawater.
Yeah, seawater, again, good. I'm trying the green grass liquid fertilizer out right now. I've done seawater treatment in the past. It looked like it worked really well, and then we got that super heavy rain when it rained 10 inches, and that pretty much stripped all that out. And so even though I had those ions in there, it looks like they're gone. That was too much water too soon and not enough organic matter to hold it in place. Because I went up to where we had worked, you know, and I looked, and when we were digging in there, man, it really had good texture. But because we dug it all up and left it on the surface, and then it rained so hard, like, you know, before I could get a cover crop in there, that I think it washed away majority of that. So even though I thought, oh, it's stuck in the soil forever, no, it's back in the ocean. It's a salt again. So the key is to make that stick. And So with the seawater treatment, I was going for more of a chemical type of bond, where I was bonding ions and breaking up plates in the soil. And with this strategy, it's more of getting the biology in there, anaerobic biology.
Stages in building the soil.
How would you know in the anaerobic if it's working or not? Since it's like kind of in between the plant area.
Well, so even though they're anaerobic, I can still see them with my microscope. So I can go out there, and right now, if I go take a soil sample from my orchard, I'm basically going to look at the slide, and it's going to look like mud. I'm not going to be able to see anything in there because it's completely dead, that there's no aggregate structure. There's no bacteria glued to anything else. No fungus glued to bigger globules. It's just mud. And sure, there's bacteria in there. There's bacteria everywhere. But what I would see is like it builds soil aggregate structure. So when I go out to sample to see if it works, what I'm going to see is in the future, hopefully, is less mud in my slide, and I'm going to see chunks. So chunk here, chunk there, versus just mud across, you know. And that's primarily right now what I'm looking for. And I assume at some point it'll be just visually obvious. You know, you can see when soil's clumped up. Yeah. So is anyone else hungry before we start discussing? Essentially what I want to do here in the next bit of this is, if you're all cool with that, I figured I'd give you some nuggets of knowledge for coming all the way out here.
Yeah, thank you.
But what I want to do is collect some feedback and things about, you know, because natural farming made it into like the solution against GMO, basically, which is pretty awesome.
Yes.
But if we're that solution, how do we get from where we are to where we need to be? And so essentially the county has kind of, via the newspaper, notified us that they want our organization to do something. Could have asked, but you know. So
it's true. They do.
Well, it said. I verbatim quoted like the natural farming part in the email, so if anyone got that, but it said introduction and advancement of natural farming as a self-reliant solution and higher nutrition or something like that. Mm-hmm. Sorry, paraphrase the last part, but something to that nature. So essentially, what I wanted to do is just collect feedback, because you saw this board meeting up here. There's a board that we are trying to get our stuff together. We're trying to get certifications. We're trying to get all our ducks in a row, and we want to go meet with the county to see how we can make that flow. But I wanted to kind of collect consensus and from us before we go sit down and, you know, so we know where we're at. So, guys, you want to grab some food, and then once we're all settled, we can start kind of talking about that.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm hungry.
I thought it was like an eye, kind of the roots, like an eye plant, like planted as an eye. They were not always the same food.
That looks like music.
Yeah, I just had a buddy of mine who went to university staying with us for last week, and he gave us like he gave us yeah, because we played it hard, but now every day we spend for like an hour looking at 3 years old, and why is the 7th and the 4th inviting us to go to the and stuff like that. So, yeah, so it's like this week.
Frequency, just like the life in the soil, in our bodies, connecting, reaching out.
Yeah. So help us have a little probably website. Oh, LinkedIn.
And I don't say myself around the fire and stuff.
There's a, I have to get going. There's a improvisation night at Coast. Yeah, I brought my drums. Just, show off and see what's there.
Upstairs,
not so much, but the good music. On Saddle Road, on the wood side. So, I did a typical holiday. It's on Saddle Road.
Where's that?
We're like the edge before you just get on the main Saddle Road. And you're probably I'm learning. And one of the things that I get to I got kind of overwhelmed by knowledge too that I'm learned by kind of a lot of
Permanent plant.
Yeah.
watching. This is going to help you be more effective.
Totally, yeah.
In restoring.
Yes, there is a precision that's the word. It's not used there.
Yeah.
You have to go a little bit beyond the intuition. Take the intuition and then also like make sure.
And boost that.
Yeah.
So that's why. Wait. Okay.
You gotta write that down.
Got a chili. Some more black-eyed peas stew in there. It's a new one. Good luck. Sour. Huh? No, awesome hot fries. That'll be black-eyed peas. I'm here today.
That's not actually
Yummy.
The cake was made in watercolor. That was.
Oh, yeah, the king cake? No, I never got made.
Never got made one of those. Baby. How do you guys
You could have done the next party then.
I don't think I've done it.
Local Hawaiian style. And then,
The Hawaiians have this whole system where they live by the moon. They can harvest their plants to the end of the day, harvest the fish, like fish and stuff. That's how they balance. He was telling me all about that, using sharks, female sharks, to help them before you existence where certain fish at certain certain plants at certain times. Plants that didn't do anything to the island and got rid of them. Yeah. No medicine, because they had, every family had sorcery, had mother sorcery, they studied the stars, they studied all that stuff. Every family had or something, and then borrowed. They all tested. Cats when my related, she's got the serious arthritis really bad. So I'm gonna go there and help her when I get some time. She's got no hands, maybe, and just help her and see. My daughter's just come really much. She's had really bad arthritis. We're here on this earth to do Then babies, you know, like, and I already had big old worms, and every time I dig, I keep chopping my worms. You know, I mean, some of them, you can chop them in the right spot, but some of them, if you chop them in the wrong spot, they get high. So they get some more, and I put that stuff in there, and like, everything was just like, so damn happy, and I put the soil on and see the white bacteria, and it was just really lush. But the rest of the yard, I have garden beds, dry bed dirt, and things last, you know, one session, and then it's all back.
That's why he wants to
Vegetation on the yard, so except for like there are the spiders and stuff, but not the spiders that are higher up. Even those ones right in the buds and you're pooping out there.
When would be a good time?
Hey, so I'm trying to explain. Are you okay? Well, all right, get charged.
Yes, like intellectual. Yeah, they're so
They took it apart to our opponent because I guess it's diversity of information. Or there you
Hi, how are you?
I was interpreting your beginning of the meeting saying, you know, that you needed help. I said that you kind of have like out of your place, you kind of have like a university going, kind of like a center or something. And you probably have those people coming in there, they're there to learn, but they're not helping. So you need,
I just got frustrated.
so you need,
type stuff. Like, cause I forget, like, all of a sudden it's the second Tuesday, I'm like, I haven't even sent an email, I don't know what the topic is, I'm like, I just make it off the top of my head, it's like, oh.
but he's the computer. And you're right, he can connect this and this and this.
Our
and it all
computers
comes-
crash.
Oh, yeah, but it's the organization, Hawai'i, which organization are we creating? Like your university or this, or going small one out or going big and one down?
We'll see. I mean, I'm up on the level where I can use help, like, organizing a Fukushima emergency rescue team to, like, go in there and bioremediate and get all those tanks that are full of radioactive water and run those to microorganisms.
Where's that over in Japan?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm, like, if someone's ready to be, like, that level, like, I'm there. Like, I got the plan, I just do it. But I can't do it all myself. But the world desperately needs this everywhere. Like, and I look at Fukushima and I just think that's a picture perfect spot where all that water is sitting there just radiating, but you can run it through these machines. Like literally like a $10 machine you can make and run the water through it. It's going to reduce the radiation at like 100 volts faster than it's naturally decaying because the microorganisms are going to start to tie it up, detoxify it, and put it into carbon atoms. Safe.
Everybody do the fight in their life, and you just got to keep it up until the good wins.
Yeah. And so I'm like, so if you're like that, like, because that's what I'm looking for, you know, these guys are doing like orbit and stuff, and then I'm like, I need to
They come for a couple weeks. Do they just come for a couple weeks?
No, these guys have been out here like a month or two right now, and so I like it's good, but you know, I don't know a lot they've learned, but they're like, yeah, when we go back to Connecticut, we'll do this. I'm like, no, I need someone so fired up, they're like, we're going to Fukushima, you know, like,
You mean like an army of people to go with you? Yeah.
Right. Well, who's Chris? I didn't know.
Chris Trump.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, that's when you were working on barium and
He's just a natural farmer. He owns 5 acres of magnets.
I live on the mountain.
Okay. I don't know exactly, but his last name's Trump, so it's Trump Farm.
You talked to him. I guess you compared.
There's a lady Trump.
Well, there's also Trumpy. The Trumps are kind of notorious up there.
The daughter of Trump, she lives in she's in India right now. She's in study.
Right, so they connected you about Fukushima?
Yeah. I never heard back.
Oh, after your, he didn't write back.
Not to me.
Not really. He's coming to our event in a week. He's gonna give a that story about Fukushima. Maybe you would like to join.
Yeah.
Why not?
Thursday the 28th.
Well, like, well, this way.
We'll talk about it after, because
Yeah, I think it's probably her son, or so like not the Tuesday, but guaranteed that's it.
Okay, I'm gonna have a space for announcements right after
Okay,
this.
so
Why don't you guys give it a
you go
shot?
up the mountain road. It's the like you come around the.
All right, so if we can all get back in where we can all get back so we can get focused again.
Go get a little bit more. We'll be right back.
What do you get? Also that stuff.
Jackfruit. Sweet. I'll bring both things if you need. Take your flashlight.
I love jackfruit. Yeah. If I was gonna be a tree, I'd be a jackfruit.
Ray, you're gonna live 100 years.
1,000
years.
No. At least we make pancakes in the morning, and I put LAB and FPJ on there.
Oh, wow.
So good. I don't syrup. No, syrup is for people that don't know about FPJ.
You taught me that. I love it.
I drink LAB every day. Just a little bit.
Me too.
Oh yeah.
It's really good.
What is this?
Oh, this
Apple
he
dip.
drew this chaya. It has a high
Alright,
protein
so
and calcium.
if I can kind of get things going, there's a few people that wanted to make announcements. So I'd like to start. Where did Zach go though? So the person that wanted to make an announcement is no longer here. But
They're outside.
should I wait? Or, yeah, man.
Hello everyone, my name is Zach Vermel. I work at the community college, and early next month, on the 6th of February, we're bringing an exciting workshop to the island. This is the first time this particular workshop has ever been offered in the islands. It's a pollinator habitat training. So, as we all know, bees are somewhat in decline globally. They're on the rise here, but globally we need to partner with our bees. And most of the bees globally are solitary bees. So that's what we're going to be focusing on this workshop around, is bees that aren't as communal. So it's going to be a 5-hour workshop on the 6th of February at UH Hilo. Bees, yeah. The pollinators and also flies that pollinate. So that'll happen at UH Hilo from 10 to 3, and then in the afternoon we'll visit a farm nearby. And the cost is $45. And since I'm a board member of HOFA, for those folks who are on the HOFA board can attend for $35. Folks who are HOFA members.
Do they produce honeycomb?
Some of them do, not all of them. There's going to be a specific focus on native Hawaiian pollinator bees and flies.
So their specific plus is that they pollinate.
Right. The folks who are hosting the workshop are much more knowledgeable than I am. I'm just convening the space for them. Yeah. So it should be really good. And I'll send out an announcement through Drake.
Okay.
Hope to see some of you there.
And then just had another announcement.
So my husband and I came down from Hawai'i today to join the group. It's our first time here. And I'm happy to know that y'all exist up in here and love Drake so much. And one thing that we've been having a conversation with Drake over has been, I think on all of our hearts, which is Fukushima. And we're having some experts who have been living in Japan for, most of their lives. They're actually Westerners, but are working particularly around community resilience and development in Fukushima right now. And they've come several times or a few times to the island just for some recuperation, and they come to the farm that we live on. And so this year, during their trip, we're going to collaborate and do a kind of evening of talk story, potluck gathering just around Fukushima. And I think all of us have been struggling with what are our sources and where are we sourcing our information and our guidance. And so his name is Bob Stilger, and he's a wonderful resource for the community. And we've connected Drake with him just around some ideas of natural farming and how remediation practices could happen. So all of the input and knowledge that and questions, that you may have could be brought up. So that's going to be in Hawai'i. We'll connect to the details of the location of our farm with Drake, but it's going to be on the 23rd, so that's not this Thursday, but next Thursday at 6:30 in Hawai'i. Love to see all of some of you there.
Thank you. And I have one announcement that next month we're going to be meeting at Auntie Sally's, not here, just for next month. And you know where Auntie Sally's is, everybody? It's by the tennis stadium. It's in the same parking lot. So we'll be meeting there next time. And is that Port guy is going to be there, or should I say that?
Yeah, one of the guys that is building a natural farming farm in California, a big chicken farm, is coming to Hawaii to see what Hawaii is doing, and he wants to visit as many farms as possible. But I told him, if you want to write off your trip, this is the best way to write off your trip. You get in front of the group and you tell us what you're doing in California. So he would be like a guest speaker, tell you about the hoops he had to jump through to get a natural farming chicken farm approved in California. So it's kind of interesting.
And I think what
he's right above San Francisco.
So I think with that too, maybe next month we'll also just kind of focus on poultry and that, and just kind of be the theme of the meeting. Be that. We'll just keep all that together. That'd be nice, because I guess we did one on pigs not too long ago, but we haven't done one on chickens for a while, so that would be good. So next month, chickens, Auntie Sally's, with guy from California. So like Naomi mentioned, I've been kind of thinking about Fukushima and all that stuff that's happening there, and I know that the Earth used to be a pretty nasty place before microbes sealed the nasties and detoxified them by separating them and spreading them over the Earth and sealing them, the really nasty ones, under the Earth. Microorganisms did it all. And so now that we've returned the Earth to this nasty state, it's time to call upon our microorganism friends again. And I truly believe to the core of my heart that we can bioremediate the Earth and completely get out of this whole mess, that we can run all those pools of nuclear water that they have through BMW machines and use microorganisms to completely purify and clean this water up, instead of, because I saw a video and there's tanks like these big, like maybe like a, I don't know, 20,000 gallon tank, maybe even larger than that, sitting right next to another one with literally a crawl space between them, all sitting there, and just a whole block of them for miles. And so imagine just one earthquake that just knocks those things and starts that water sloshing. They're just all going to hit each other and completely collapse, and all that water is just going to go right wherever it wants to go. And so if we don't treat that water before the next major earthquake, or
Tsunami.
yeah, or whatever, we're sitting ducks for like a really, really, really gross nuclear disaster that's beyond belief. So I truly believe to the core of my heart that this natural farming and these microorganisms and studying this is the only way out of this. The only way. So what I'm trying to do is find people that are interested, that want to like really get down with me and be like, how do we set a ground team up to go into Fukushima? What do we need? Who are the nuclear experts we need? Who's the biochar expert? Who's the what? And get this together. So if you're interested in doing that, let me know, because I'm really interested. I sometimes cry about it at night. Yep. Because I see it, and I see we can do it, but I really need help to make that manifest into a reality. So if you know anyone who's like Fukushima, or wants to be a leader, or is like, has a lot of energy, or, you know, doesn't have a job, you know, you know, let me know, because I have a job for them. And with that being like the macrocosm like type, that basically our whole Earth is in vital need of bioremediation. That's just one point where it's a really pinnacle that we could make a huge impact and then gain credibility to then bioremediate the whole Earth. I want to bring it back to this microcosm of, we have this county and this island here, and we just got the support of the county. And really, like, this stuff has come from being backyard with my hero Dr. Park teaching me to now where it's like people are talking about it and I don't even know. And it's growing, and it's got so much momentum. But I want to know from this group here, kind of, if the county pledged its full support towards introducing and advancing natural farming, what are we going to do with that support? What do we need? Yeah, what do you need? That's the better way to approach it. So what do we need? Because essentially what we're going to do is, as the CGNF board, which is that board you saw meeting up here, we're going to get together, kind of discuss some things, and then meet with the mayor and see where they're at, and probably, you know, set up a few meetings to see where they're at, where we're at, and then, you know, reach where we want to go together and have a cohesive thing here. What I'm doing right now, as part of being on the board, is to be the person who's collecting the feedback here from you guys, so that we can reflect that as that organization.
Can the county do what, you know, they were doing in Korea?
I'll write that down.
Do you remember when we went there, they were making IMO together, all the farmers, and storing it, and, you know, like that. That would be a help to a lot of farmers if they could do that. That would be, you know,
Co-ops.
marvelous. That was one thing.
Geographical, like Apunas, like the
So, well, hang on one sec. I want to finish with this. So on that, what I could do to represent that is basically, can the county do what they're doing in Korea? First off, we have to educate the county what they're doing in Korea, because people know, and I have some video footage of what was working there. But if I had a list out of like what they were doing in Korea and what bullet points they hit, and then I was able to say, hey, this is what they're doing in Korea, then that's something I can present to them. Because I believe that the model they're doing in Korea with those little learning center things that we went to, that was hugely instrumental. But getting that written out in the little things so that we can do that here, yes, absolutely.
They were making all the IMOs and something like that together, and they were storing them so people could go in and.
Are you willing to write those things out of what they're doing?
With help.
Okay.
I can't quite remember everything that they were doing, and like that, and storage and like that. What all they were doing. Is there anybody who speaks English in Korea that I can write to and get information, Dr. Park? They have to be able to speak English.
Dr. Park, the extension agent we met,
Yeah.
you used to communicating with him?
Yeah, that Mr.
Because that guy was running the program.
He's in charge of that natural farming in Korea, the Gokseong County. Actually, he's expecting the mayor of this county, mayor Hawai'i, visit him so that they can kind of show what they're doing now, because they advanced a lot.
Yeah, I
Now
bet.
They bought the machine and everything. So,
Yeah, we did that like 5 years ago.
yeah. So it's more than what we saw.
Well, we saw at that time.
But at least when we visited, then the county support the place. The natural farming farmers can gather together, and then they can make this all inputs together. So they learn each other. If they make a mistake, then they learn each other, and then they correct each other, so that everybody knows. And then plus the county offer a place they can store those things.
Wow.
So they don't have to make any storage place individual farmer.
And all the jars, who gets all the jars? And
Yeah, all the
all
jars.
the county?
Yeah,
County gets on it?
county is supporting.
Do they make it the old way, or that each county has a machine?
The machine is very expensive. The county now they're so convinced, so they bought the big machine. I haven't seen it, so I wanted to go to see that too. But they're not. You see, this machine is not just for the IMO4, for the fertilizer substitute, but also they can use for the, recycling the food scraps and things like that, and to make this animal feed.
With the
Or
IMO?
fish feed, yeah. So IMO4 is an excellent feed for. So,
The county could buy some machines.
Yeah,
Potential.
Yeah.
the county goes there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
So regarding the county, I mean, if they were trained how to make IMOs, and if there was some way using machinery that works with the dump mulch system, so that we're getting the dump mulch to be IMO. And then also,
yeah.
if we run it through either vermicompost with worms or soldier flies, it would probably be fire free except for the trucks. The trucks are really the problem because they hold the fire ants.
Also the slaughterhouses.
Yeah.
All this stuff. I mean, even like the runoff when it floods, there's whole design where you can actually, in the floodplain, have these traps where you're collecting the sediments instead of them going out to the ocean. And then the DOT is cruising by, and they, it's like they already know it's there. We could be scooping this stuff up and putting it into the soil and using it. So there's all these resources that could be funneled. It would take a person to lead that. But the thing else I can for myself.
So that's probably the crucial thing.
Buying scenage, sugar, and these, the brown rice vinegar. I can't even find organic brown rice vinegar anymore. So it's like, sure, we can grow these technically, but if we're still buying all this stuff, I feel like we need to develop the industries for all these things so that it's truly a local system. Yeah. And sugar should be a pretty easy one for here, I would think, right?
Well, yeah. They used to do
Do
it.
things.
I see a huge boom in the sugar industry. So if you look, I just do, because as more people switch to natural methods, they're going to need more sugar. And if we're really on the leading edge right now, you do what Ginger John did, plant your entire land in sugar.
I have
That guy has foresight.
As a physician, I'm listening to what's happening. The marijuana is legalized now. I think it's gonna spread all over the country. There are lots of drug addicts that has a very bad kind of drugs, like hydrocodone, oxycodone. It's a killing. If you get overdose and things, kill. versus marijuana is rather smooth to control the pain. So I'm not really advertising for recreation type of thing, but for the pain, lots of people suffering with this real pain. And they need some real medicine that help for the pain, but not that dangerous. And that's what the
organic
marijuana.
IMO,
So
marijuana.
marijuana is another crop. I think the Big Island has a very, very good chance because I saw marijuana magazine. This was 20-some years ago. The police department by squad had a special seminar for the physicians to orient the physicians on what's going on in all these the hard drugs. And they showed me that time marijuana magazine, Puna Gold, which is a Puna produced marijuana, $1,000 per pound.
Wow.
Versus Mexico grown marijuana is $50.
Oh.
So the quality of the marijuana here is very superior, they said. I didn't understand why. Now,
Yeah, we can export. We can export to Colorado.
we have a volcanic soil,
Yeah.
volcanic soil, which has lots of minerals in there.
Yeah.
Any minerals in the soil, rich mineral, has a higher quality of that products. So we have to be proud of that we have organic soil. any products, fruits and everything, even the oranges, if we grow here, that should
Healthier.
supposed to be very, very good, healthy, nutritional value-wise, because they have lots of minerals. And that is the one thing we have to emphasize, Big Island.
Yeah, thank you.
Another project we're working on at Hawaii Community College is the creation of a master composter program. This is something that's been offered on the mainland. It's never been offered in Hawaii though. We have master gardening programs to train up people from the first year through the fifth year, or however long it is. And there are analogous master such and such programs on the mainland. Master composting being one of them. And it seems like that might be a natural pairing with natural farming efforts in terms of turning the wood chips that still contain pathogens at the different transfer stations into actual compost that's been inoculated by good microorganisms.
How do the IMOs work on the fire ants? Do they do good on those, or is there any evidence either way?
Healthier fire ants?
No, I mean, does it repel them? Because, snails seem to go away and slugs and everything when you get your soil all good and everything.
Yeah, but the snails are eating bacteria, and it's as you shift it to be more fungal, the bacteria goes away, which is why the snails go away. Fire ants aren't necessarily looking for the bacteria, and they're also typically up in your trees, so they're not really in the soil, so changing your soil, yeah, maybe, but it's
It all comes from the soil, though, everything, so it's kind of...
Yeah, but...
So my long-term goal with the master composter training is to train up locally based large-scale composters to actually turn and manage green waste facilities, turn it into black hole facilities.
That's great.
That's the long-term vision.
What about the county just promoting, their whole scheme for promotion of economic promotion doesn't mention agriculture a whole lot, I don't think. It just seems to be some conversation about a more strategic plan on the county's part to promote stuff other than tourism. More agricultural stuff should be part of the conversation.
Yeah, so they...
People start producing more and so on and so forth, the word needs to get out on that stuff.
Yeah, and in that same article, they also cited that they've
we've done the first food self-sufficiency baseline study, which established basically the groundwork for that to happen, because before they didn't know what the picture of ag was and how it, now that they have that data, I'm thinking they're moving more.
Who's doing that in the county? Who's responsible?
Jeff Melrose?
Yeah, Jeff Melrose produced that report, and then it's coming through the county R&D, I think. That I believe he works for them.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
But who in the county wants to support natural farming? Is it R&D? Is that what you're saying? Or who are you gonna?
Well, so
who's gonna be your liaison department?
No. So essentially, what I just talked with Jane briefly, and there's no like anything written in stone. This is just hearsay essentially at this point. But if you go through county R&D, you can get $25,000 grants, and that's the cap that they have that they can issue out, and they issue those. They put requests for proposals out, and then I think in February you got to do it, and then like June, July you actually get the money to actually work through that, and that's through county R&D. She also told me that the mayor has mayor money, which I didn't know the mayor had mayor money. Why don't I have Drake money? It's like, I don't know.
But each council person has.
But the mayor has mayor money, and the mayor, because this letter came from his office and his department, he has to ultimately back this up. And so if R&D, your projects aren't for R&D, then we're also going to go and sit and talk to the mayor and see what the mayor has in mind for his money. Maybe he'll just return it to the taxpayers. Or give it to us. Right?
Was that our mayor that went to Korea?
No. So our mayor hasn't been to Korea yet, but that was the
Korean
other
mayor
thing.
Visited here. Korean mayor visited here.
Well, he needs to go there.
So he should definitely send Billy.
Yeah. We can make it like grassroots effort. We'll all contribute pennies, just get the money for the whole island, so we don't have to take his money,
Drake, how willing is the county to make some land available to have some research centers for Korean national farming centers around, and maybe low leases and stuff for small model farms that people can see and work on, and ultimately it's about getting people farming.
So what the county does have available in that same article is cited as the Kapulana Ag Park, which is just above Pauilo. So when you're driving out there and there's that square that's in there that I was supposed to farm with Dominic, but then I had a hectic life and didn't even have a car at that point, so I couldn't get out there to do it. But that project, I think, is probably still on the table, at least in some sense of getting that together. That initial spot there was supposed to work with the food basket and to really alleviate the pressure on the food basket via a sustainable model there. But just Mauka that, they got 2,000 acres of land that the county is trying to produce as their ag park. Now I know the bids went out on it already to things, but I know that they're trying to develop that project as their main thing. So I know they're involved in that project specifically. Whether they're willing to do other things, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just all delegated to there.
Yeah, and that there, but the county also, in the project I did in downtown Hilo, where I just planted that up, they've been really supportive. I'm not in jail, so that's cool. And so they've been supportive, and I think there's land available everywhere. And my thought and my thinking is, why don't we all have a compost tea brewer in our car, and you're driving down the road and just spray the side of the road. Yeah. You drive to Puna, spray. Yeah. You drive, spray. Pretty soon that stuff's going to start to bioremediate, and then later you can come and plant it. And so if all of us just become ninjas and just start spraying and just out of your car window, just IMO, and we start doing the work ahead of time and start doing that just on our own. It doesn't cost very much. The green grass fertilizer, $5 for $40,000 or 40,000 gallons. So if we start doing that and we start soil prepping, there's lots of land everywhere. Every time I drive to Puna, I look and I'm going down this stretch and I look and there's all this stuff on the side of the, like planting area. I'm like, why don't people just pull over for a minute, plant stuff there, and then keep going home. Pretty soon you pull over and you harvest some. Pretty soon you're gonna pull over and Uncle's gonna be like, oh, you want some Kulua pork that I just got from the no smell thing, and here's some lau and pretty soon you're gonna be like, wait, why was I going home again?
Yeah.
And
where are the hubs though? That's the question. Where are the existing hubs that are already population centers that are already community centers? Maybe that's the leverage point.
Yeah.
To turn what is a fungally dominated, a bacterially dominated soil that's in grass, convert that into a productive foodscape.
Or just make the grass tea and give it away.
Yeah, well, that was my idea too. Is if the county had like a thing like as you went across the Singing Bridge, just like how they load trains up with water, it just goes whoosh into the tank and it's closed. As you're driving across the Singing Bridge, you pull up for 10 seconds, they go whoosh, your compost tea brewer is full, and you just cruise out, and now you're spraying this stuff that was made correctly as you went over the Singing Bridge. And as you're going, you pass Subway, Baskin Robbins out to Puna, you pull over for a second, it goes whoosh, and now your thing's full, and by the time you're to Pahoa, your tank's empty, you fill back up at the, Pahoa, and then you drive back. And so by facilitating that mix area where you could just load your brewers, and if we all got everybody spraying, and we sponsored brewers out, like sprayers out to people, then we could really highly bioremediate with almost like zero cost. I mean, besides the sprayer to yourself, and there's cost, but if we're all doing it, it's not like, oh, why don't you guys do it for us and we're gonna chill here. It's like, oh, let's all get involved. We can all spray a little bit as we're driving. I mean,
that guy that bought Lanai, he needs help over there. That island needs help.
Yeah, well,
and he's put on the list.
For the county.
So what sort of proposal does the county need? What would be a palatable proposal for them to receive from this group?
Well, from the group, it's probably going to be pretty tame. But if it came from me,
What's attainable proposal for them to receive that wouldn't overwhelm them?
It's all about education. So if they can educate, give us anything to educate, like to make the tea to educate, and then.
Well, I think so. I think one of the things we've been trying to do is educate people and teach them how to make the recipes. But I like what Mike's been telling me recently, which is, wow, that's advanced stuff. Let's just train people how to use it. And then if the county had it available, like you pull up to the thing and it's like, just turn the sprayer on. You're like, wow, that was easy. Like you don't have to know how it was made or anything. You just fill up and you're on your way. So the education's good, but it's a stumbling block for a lot of places. If you just had the material, you're going to use it today. But if you have to go buy the sugar and the whatever to, you're not going to do it.
That's education though too, just using it. It's like
it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. But some are set it and forget it. But
yeah, make it easier for those lazy people.
So you're teaching in a school right now?
Yep.
You're teaching kids how to use IMO and so on, and are you teaching them how to make inputs?
Yeah, we do. Yep.
So can we propose that to other schools to teach natural farming schools?
Yeah, there you go.
So what's missing on that right now is the expertise, because I know a lot of farmers they want to do it, and I'm probably going to put something together with Kaitea to hit up at least the Waimea community and that area, and work with teachers to do a little bit of teaching for those guys, because we've been talking about that but yeah.
Didn't David write a curriculum?
Yep.
And is that available? And so people who are teachers already and are agricultural teachers can read the curriculum and David Takeda. Because he would have written one that's acceptable to the DOE and the university, because he's a professor.
Yeah, yeah. I think also, yeah. I mean, help on publication of materials. I mean, I'm just going to write that down as kind of a generalization to that, but.
Well, what about the county helping with certification, sponsoring certification? Sponsoring, helping getting that, supporting that. If they're missing expertise, they should,
Yeah, essentially, we're moving forward on that. Really, what's missing is I don't have a reliable vehicle to get around. Not only is it not like registered or whatever, and I don't have insurance or a driver's license, but
Spray the road, huh?
yeah, and I'm going to spray the road. But so what I want from the county is immunity, because I'm about to do some stuff that I just, yeah, yeah, right.
They don't do anything here unless somebody complains. Remember, so.
No, it's true, and I have been spraying the roads already. So.
I thought, just bringing this up the way you did, just the needs. It's not just the needs of this group, but the needs of the island. And the health is one of the biggest things. The diabetes among all the cultures, but especially the Hawaiians. So perhaps there's a way to tie this in with other groups, like the university, or maybe some kind of studies to see if there's any benefits to naturally farmed food, or the medicinal uses. But also medicinal herbs. If we could grow high quality herbs with the clean natural farming in a permaculture setting with the best herbs, I mean that's a great situation.
They're all grown.
Yeah, well, in the article that it mentions, it says it does mention how natural farming is healthier. Somehow, it mentions that that's why they sided with natural farming versus the biotech industries, because it mentions in their nutritional quality.
where is this article?
It was published in the paper. I should have brought the copy with me. Yurick gave it to me. But it's on the internet. If you search Bill 113 Kanoi letter, I don't know, you'll probably find it on the Google.
Oh, the letter from Billy Kanoi?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me?
County Health Department anywhere in this picture?
I'm unaware of that. Yeah.
Hey Dave, are you talking about a research study that we would
Yeah,
do
research
together
studies would
and
be
follow?
good. Yep, nutritional data. I think there may have been one or two, but that would be a good thing. And then also just seeing if there's any medicinal benefit, like lactic acid bacteria, that kind of stuff. Just working with the university, having grad students doing some studies to find some quick results where we think they'll be.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like state more than county though.
Yeah, right. That's good.
Can you explain how it energized the whole thing, and that's what's the best thing, that everybody got energized to do something? Like the animal movement, energized everybody. Like zillions of people came out, came together, and started gardening, and the whole energy behind it is the amazing part, I think. It's creates, bonding energy. People come out for it. I mean, there's so many things going on. You try and get 10 people together, it's like, it's hard because there's so much competition, but it really energizes, everyone.
So Drake, they're wanting this proposal from the Court of Natural Farming, CGNF page.
No, essentially, my strategy, learned a few things. I have one mouth, 2 ears. The first meeting, I'm going to go and listen. Just be open, listen, hear what they have to say. I do want to have a few ideas of where we're at, where we're going, at least present what I've collected But essentially I want to listen in here. Saw in the letter it mentioned database, maybe 3 times the words in there. And I'm not sure if they have that database available or what they're planning to do, but what the county's really looking to do is get a lot of data on the natural farming and reliable data. So I don't know how that would pan out in terms of, maybe like a stipend for the farmer to follow this regime and then collect really good data, or how that's going to pan out. But I know when I Jeff Melrose and Don, I don't know his last name. What's Don's last name? Don.
Huh?
The guy that's like the vice of the R&D. Vice.
Oh, Bendy.
Bendy.
Mendy.
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 Okay.
Mendy.
Mendy.
Hey, Mendy.
Wait, that wasn't what the guy whose name
He'll
is
be walking
Don?
in the door in a minute.
He's the deputy director.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, he came out to my place and visited, and the main thing he was talking about is data on this.
The data about how many people were actually farming before natural farming came in, how many are farming now. That's pure numbers.
Well,
The number of farmers.
It's
and that's
true.
what they want. They want more farmers.
You picked up data from Korea?
I think so. Yeah, I think they would, but the other part of this on the data that I was trying to convey to them is that presently we're not standardized on our input making. So if I say I sprayed this input that day, it means nothing because I haven't verified that your input was correct. And that's been the missing link in why we haven't collected better data. And a lot of that hinges on a certification. So working with county or whoever to get the certification, the ball's rolling. Like it's happening. It's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. Even the next week, it's probably actually going to happen. But to roll that out and to really get our edges tight on that, that's a ways down the road, I think. There's a lot of things to get lined up before that happens. And so that's been one of our main preventing things, has been this not having the certification there. Because there's no verification. Like I teach you FPJ and you go home, but there's no validation. So getting that validation to then I sample your thing, I'm like, oh, you made it correct, then it's something we can work with. And so yeah, working with them, I'm just going to write certification up kind of near the top because I could use some help with that, in just having a car that I could drive around would help me get this certification together. Or, like.
I thought you didn't want a car.
No, well, either that or don't arrest me. One of the two. Either give me a car or don't arrest me.
Chauffeur. You need a chauffeur.
Who wants to drive
and
me?
a truck.
Yeah, you need
A chauffeur and a truck to like collect and disperse.
So, okay.
I'm changing the grant for a truck.
Right, well, coffee and
Yeah, good rims. No.
I
No, simple. But
Yeah.
with a radiator, that'll get me further than La Paloma.
I am
right?
Mobile. When you see this, we start a whole campaign. Have you seen this? It's luxe. Like the potato.
Okay. Okay. So, any other thoughts? I'm gonna recap it real fast then. So essentially, what I got down here is the thing I didn't mention. I thought a retail store would be cool. I don't know if the county is really the right entity, but I really want to encourage somebody somewhere to start a retail store with these inputs that can work with the CGNF to like get that, so that would be like maybe one of the first places certified to start distributing. And this is sort of going through the co-op and their ideas, but when I've been talking to the co-op, their ideas had been more to reach big commercial farmers, where I think there's a vital need right now for us in town where we only need like a quart of the thing, not 50 gallons. And so if we can get quarts that we know are correct, of the correct inputs, that a small retail store would be good. So I don't know if the county does like business startup grants and things like that too. So if someone's really interested, I mean, I think this is like a really lucrative idea even. If I had more time, I would do it. I did it at one point down at the farmer's market, but that was before people knew about it, and so I was mostly educating versus selling product. Whereas now I think you could sell product. People are educated enough that they would come in, they're like, I want comfrey FPJ and a sweet potato FPJ. And they know what they want, and they're going to buy it because they know. And so I do think right now a retail store somewhere, you know, I think Hilo is your best bet right now, you know. And so I do, that's somebody help me. I mentioned the Renegade sprayers, certification. Can the county do what they're doing in Korea? And one of the main things for that is our mayor visiting the guy who's in charge there, and or just compiling some data on that. Integrating with the dump mulch, so training people how to use the dump mulch better with vermicompost, soldier flies, even using slaughterhouse waste. Building swales around so we can catch runoff. Marijuana. Medical. I gotta. Medical marijuana.
Yes. It depends on how you say recreational.
Yes. Recreational. Okay. And so, and essentially, one of the reasons for any and all industry to be grown in Hawaii is that we have more nutrients, just based on our soil types and lava and all that. Master compost program, not necessarily through the county here, but would be in sort of in this thing. Complementary, yep. Talking to the county about where their ag is in their economic development planning. Just bring that up as the kind of a general topic to see where get feedback from them on that. Again, send the mayor to Korea. It's on there twice. Apparently that's important. Ready-made supplies, which is what I was talking about with the retail store, but this could also be through sort of, you know, what they're doing in Korea, where it's more of a co-op versus you pay money, like, so ready-made supplies in that nature. Why did I just write natural farmers? We need more of them.
Free grass tea outlets.
Cert, okay.
I think the research center and demonstration site.
Okay, so research. Okay, so research, and also Gene was here earlier, and he has that 7-acre thing behind Cafe 100, which he's getting the ball rolling on that. So research center right in Hilo, that's a potential right there. And then David's curriculum to the teachers, help on publication of more materials. And then I think this was important, as mentioned as a side note, but a person to lead it.
A coordinator.
So like maybe a county natural farming agent that has a new truck. No, it doesn't have to be new.
Yeah, work for the county.
Rick, do you want to work for the county?
No, I don't. I have a lot of stuff going on. I don't want another job. And then I think also it makes sense to mention that sugar and vinegar huis, like ways to get those materials together. And that's sort of co-op based, but I'm also on the co-op board, so I'll sort of represent that as well. And then basically the needs of the island are, you know, health. We have a diabetes problem, and if we grow medicinals here, we can help with that. So that's a big opportunity. And so, recap, that's all I got here. I'm going to present a collation of this to the county, and then I guess maybe the next natural farming meeting. If anything really big happens, I guess I'll email out. Otherwise, we're just going to kind of get this ball rolling, meet with the county, see what they have in mind, and what we as a board decide is important, and then present this just as like, this is the feedback we got. And then, so, cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing food, thanks for enjoying, and I hope you guys got some time to talk story, and really, because that's what this is about too. So, thanks.
If anybody wants any plant cuttings?